Corley Moore, talking to you for a few short minutes while we're waiting for the scrap to begin. The scrap will be starting here in just a few minutes, and I'm going to talk to you while everybody's logging in. I'm going to talk to you about becoming a vigilante. If you are not a vigilante, why not? It is a collection of the coolest cats from across the world, firefighters from around the world getting together in a group and supporting each other. It's an amazing group to be a part of. Every day, people are posting their questions, their problems, their advice. It is powerful to belong to. One of the best collections of people, and you can be a part of it. We got stuff like the swag. The swag is awesome. Don't get me wrong. The swag is awesome. That's not what it's about, but you got vigilante only swag, like the custom bookmarks made by Taylor's Tins for the vigilantes. You got stuff like the blacked out vigilante hats and the vigilante shirts, all available in the exclusive vigilante only shop, which all of that stuff is sold, not, I don't want to say at no markup, but like at the lowest possible price you can basically sell it for. And so, and it's not even about the swag, although that's just the awesome part of it. We do forums. We're on forum number 13 or 14. It's coming up. And it is some of the best, most gifted subject matter experts coming in, and they have conversations. It's like a scrap. Think of the scrap, but you're in it also in the call, able to ask and have conversations and talk. It's an amazing time. We do, I've got the 4th episode of the Fire Away coming up this month. And in a Fire Away, I go live and just field questions. People post questions, field questions, and we answer and discuss those questions from firefighters across the world. It's a good time. The Fire Aways, the forums. It's an amazing time. Not to mention, every time there's a conference and vigilantes get together, we have a vigilante meetup. We're in the process of forming traditions that are gonna make, and how those happen and what it means when you get like your vigilante coin, which is also another thing that's pretty freaking cool, is the vigilante coin, the blackout coin. And they're numbered, they're exclusive, and we're figuring out how that's gonna work out when we get together in person. We're supposed to recite the creed. We do this for others. Push, train, learn, master ourselves. Never easy. Never quit. Man, if you're not a member of the Vigilantes, I'm just asking you, why not? I wanted to talk to you for a few minutes while the scrap is about to start. You can go to firehousevigilance.com. $5 a month. You're a member of the Vigilantes. You can also sign up for a year if you prefer that over the subscription. Firehousevigilance.com. Become a member today, man. You will not regret it. The scrap will be starting soon. Thanks for listening to me. Corley Moore, Firehouse Vigilance. It is Weekly Scrap. 2024 is here. I could not be more excited because I can think of no better person to kick it off on the scrap other than Chief Rob Fischer. He is a suburban firefighter from the Pacific Northwest, currently holds the rank of battalion chief in Snohomish County, Washington, which is right outside Seattle. He will be retiring, which we will probably talk about, but he'll be retiring this coming March after 36 years serving in that department. Rob has been affiliated with the Fools, Brothers in Battle, County Fire Tactics, the Roof Pervs, the Highwaymen. He's also the co-founder of Young Officers on Fire. He loves food. He loves life. He loves wine. And most of all, he loves his wife, his granddaughters, his family. I am proud to say he is one of my favorite people on this planet, and very, very proud to call him a friend. So welcome back, Rob Fischer, as a guest of the Weekly Scrap, episode number 226.
226. Can you believe it?
No, brother.
Oh, man, I appreciate being back. I love spending time with you and chatting, and I'm sure we'll talk about some of the chats we've had over a period of time, but I'm excited to be back.
I'm excited you're here. Anything I missed in the intro? Anything you would like to add?
No, I'm a foodie. I love wine. I got some wine here tonight. Going with Cabernet from Washington. But yeah, that's it, man. Just love
Rock and
being
roll.
here.
Sam has informed me on my phone I have an orange tongue. Sorry. I was showing everybody I was eating my nerds. This is how I get amped up for the scrap. Is That's not a sponsor. That's just the nerds that I ate before we went live. But speaking of sponsors, we'll go right to them, and so we can get to the scrap. And that is Key Hose, the original sponsors of the scrap, the ones who started it all, the hose experts. You can check them out online at keyhose.com. Follow them on Facebook. And of course, Affordable Drill Tower, home, firefighter owned and operated. The only thing you can't do on an affordable drill tower is live fire. Affordable Drill Tower. You can rappel, stretch hose lines, go through the stairs, go through the floor, do window bailouts, cut holes in the roof props, use the apartment balconies, pump into the FDIC, or flow water from the sprinkler system. Call Steve or Dennis at 844-55-TOWER or drop an email to info@affordabledrilltowers.com. FirestationFurniture.com provides a complete line of quality furniture for your firehouse. It is firefighter owned and operated. They understand the strain that firefighters put on furniture and offer furniture that's built to last. Visit www.firestationfurniture.com for more information. And then finally, Young Officers on Fire, May 6th through the 8th of this year, 2024, the West Coast Leadership Conference. I'll be there. Rob will be there. Chief Frank Lieb will be there. Derek Roberts, Jeff Rothmeyer, Ben Flegel, Michael Dozier. I'm leaving out names, so I shouldn't even start naming names, but so many people are going to be there. It's going to be an amazing conference. Too many to mention. May 6th through the 8th, Spokane, Washington. Go get registered, youngofficersonfire.com. And there you go. That officially makes it. Sponsors done. Scrap ready to roll. Guest is here. Sam is here, making sure that we stay on track. And all that being said, brother, you ready for 226?
Yeah, I'm absolutely ready.
All right,
I appreciate you promoting the conference, and what was great is that you were there last year. We brought you in and wanted to kind of pump everybody up and get them all excited. So I do appreciate you putting us in on the on your sponsor list there. I don't know if we paid for that, but if we did, no, I'll have my business guy send you a few bucks.
No, not at all, man. That's just a hype, just to pay back the hype.
Well,
coming from Greg Van Ham said LFG with 3 exclamation points. John Shackelford said, good evening, brothers. Bradley Vaillancourt said, let's get it. Good evening, all, from Joe Gavita. Excited for another exciting scrap. Got my notebook ready. Good evening, brothers. Let's go, from Daniel Harris. Engine Company 24, Columbus, MS. Is that Mississippi? Is MS Mississippi? Am I terrible?
Missouri?
Missouri? Is that MO? No, geography's not our strong. It's the scrap. Okay, I thought Mighty Mo, but I wasn't sure. I don't know MS. Someone, Marco, let us know. How about that? He'll know. In the house. Oh, man, there's so much hype. There's about 40 people just saying hype. LFG checking in from Traverse City from Josh Morgan. Can't wait to hear what Rob has to say from Kevin McLean. MS is Mississippi. Laugh out loud. Someone's laughing at it. That's okay. That's okay. We earned it on that one. All right. No abbreviations for states unless it's very obvious, okay? With that being said, Rob, are you ready to go?
Yeah, well, first of all, I think it's crazy that Salka, Lasky, and I know that we were talking earlier, but I'm like, it's just crazy to be following those cool dudes. Those are mentors and guys that I had, followed through their careers and after their careers, and I'm fortunate to be able to go to conferences and teach with them, and at the same time, or being at the same conference instructing. And so it's crazy. It's crazy that I'm here at 226, but I'm ready. Let's go.
What's awesome is like literally what a great way to close out 2020. 2023 was amazing. Just unreal. The guest after guest after guest after knowledge bomb after knowledge bomb. Everything from, I don't even want to start naming names, but then closing it out, Salka, Lasky, right? And then it's like Salka, Lasky, Fischer, right? Kicking off Fischer with 2024. I can't think of a better way to do it, man. And absolutely, I love it. So opening topic of 2024, and we're going to talk about the 29th anniversary, Mary Pang.
Yeah, I wanted to start this off. I know, when we were kind of exchanging topics, and And I wanted to start off with the anniversary of the Mary Pang fire, which is a significant fire in Seattle's history. Um, and the reason why is that many years being a part of the Fools, we would go down to the vacant lot where the warehouse was, and we'd hang out with brothers and sisters, and pipes and drums would come out, and we might partake in a little bit of adult libation, kind of remembering and celebrating the lives of Walter Kilgore, Gregory Shoemaker, Randy Terlicker, and James Brown. So the thing that just kind of hits me is it's 6 o'clock at night here in Washington. I'm not home in Vegas. I'm up in Washington. And if you were to go back to 1995 when this fire occurred, 6 o'clock at night, Seattle fire was probably everybody was eating dinner or somewhere near there, and the alarm came in just a little bit after 7 o'clock in the evening. And I believe it is the largest line of duty loss of life for Seattle fire, with the four firefighters being killed that night.
Mm.
It was an arson fire. The son of the family wanted to collect insurance money, and he set the fire, and there was a floor collapse with firefighters on the floor, and they basically dumped down into the body of fire. There
Mm.
was a lot of lessons learned. I know I sent you a copy of the report, and it's an old report because it was done by the U.S. Fire Administration. It was I think it was called a technical report, and so this is before NIOSH and all that stuff.
This is
And so
95.
1995.
Okay, yeah, making sure I had my year right.
Yeah. So when you read the report, there was a lot of lessons learned. Seattle Fire Department, came out of this having to, do a lot of changes as a result. And so I just wanted to talk a little bit about it tonight because typically when I am not working and I'm up in Washington, I would probably be down in Seattle with all the brothers and sisters, remembering these four brothers that were killed because it was an arson fire. So I
I
just
don't
wanted.
think. No, I don't want to step on this. Sorry, I said I don't think there's a better way to honor, RFB. Remember Fallen Brothers. I don't think there's a better way to honor their sacrifice than to revisit it
Yeah.
and the lessons learned. So absolutely, I can't think of a better way to start off the scrap than talking about it. Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, and this really came, and you and I, and we talk a lot about our wives and our lives and how they support us and everything. And this was a significant event because 6 months prior to it, I was working on the medic unit, and I went to a line of duty. So let me back up and say the the line of duty death and the funeral that resulted at this was the first one that I went to as a firefighter line of duty death. And there was well over 10,000 firefighters. And it was just like, it was overwhelming,
Right.
being a young firefighter. But 6 months prior to that, was working on a medic unit, and we went to an officer involved shooting. Basically, it was a murder with hostages in one of the Snohomish County sheriffs where I worked in Snohomish County, was shot and killed. And so that was the first line of duty death of a first responder that I was on. And when you look at, my wife and I had only been married a few years. I'm kind of newer into all of this. 6 months apart, we're just dealing with these things. And so
Right.
it was a challenge for my wife and I. It was a challenge for, like, this is what this profession really is. I mean, you you know you could not come home one night and or one morning. And so it really challenged us and caused us to really think about our family and how we were going to do this. And I know Jody and I, we talk about it. She posted on Facebook today about the Mary Pang fire and made mention about how we were growing as a young couple and how this had an impact on her.
No, without a doubt. And like you said, there's no way we do what we do without, you have Jody, I have Amanda, and the support that we have in that regard. Uh, yeah.
So, but anyways, I just thought, I don't want to start on a downer, but it is a fire that I think that everybody can learn from. I've studied it for years. I probably know more about that fire than a lot of the Seattle firefighters that are working there today. I mean, they know of it. but I've looked at it from different angles. In fact, I was in a meeting before this, and Phil Jost is retired deputy chief out of Seattle Fire, and meeting with him, and we just kind of brought it up and talked a little bit about it. And I was saying, hey, where were you that night? And he wasn't on duty, but his company was there,
Right.
and so we kind of talked about it. And but we'll start with the big stuff, and then we'll get into the light stuff and start talking about quints and all that other fun stuff.
No, I love it. And Sam, Matt Musikit posted what I'm guessing is also a report. It might be the same one, but Sam also has the file that Rob sent, which is the report he referenced from the USFA. So if you want to download that, if you want to reference it, if you want to study it, Sam posted the link for it, so you can download it. Right on. Are you there? Did I lose you?
No, I'm right here, man.
Quiet. You got quiet for a second, then I heard him.
Oh, I was just letting you. I was letting you chat. That's why I didn't want to interrupt you. I don't want to. I don't want to walk. I mean, you and I, we did the 9 Ls together, and the well, it should be the 8
Listen.
Ls and the 1 C for communication. But
Right.
we did the 9 Ls, and I'm trying to listen, man. I'm trying to listen.
Listen was as close as it got to capturing communication with an L word. Okay, you got to understand. There's only so many L words.
Yeah.
As I've been informed, there's only
Abso-
8 light bulbs on that L. I have been informed. All right, so let's do it. Limited staffing and or resources. Let's talk about and I don't even want to say limited, but just task saturated, manpower limited, right? What
Yeah,
when is vertical ventilation appropriate? Let's just kick it off. Let's go straight to truck ops and let's start talking tactics.
I mean, obviously, being a West Coast truckie back in the day when I was working on a ladder truck, but I'm influenced a lot by the LAFD style, and so we would do regular vertical ventilation, and I've lectured on it. It's been part of my lecture for quint operations when I was lecturing on quints, and I taught, well, the highwaymen, we teach about vertical ventilation from the West Coast perspective. And so the question always comes up is like, you know, when do you vertically ventilate? Is vertical ventilation beneficial on every fire? And I think the reality is that when you look at the number of fire departments in the nation, and I had to look this up because I didn't know, because I knew that there was I knew that the number was somewhere near 30,000, but there's 27,000, a little over 27,000 fire departments in the nation,
Okay.
and only 15% of those departments have more than 3 stations. And so really what it says to me is that majority of us are running with small departments, less than 3 stations. Now that doesn't mean that it's just their department going on the fire, and it might be a mixed bag of things, but in a lot of the cases, the majority of the departments that are responding on these are resource limited. So when I get the question of, is vertical ventilation good at all fires, well, really it's dependent on your resources. It's dependent on the arrival of your resources, dependent on your staffing. I mean, there's so many things. But really, when you cut it and they say, well, what are my priorities? Well, the priorities should be put water on the fire and search the building, period. And if you've got the ability at that time to do additional ventilation outside of horizontal ventilation, which is pretty easy, it's the fastest way to do ventilation. But if you have the ability to do vertical ventilation, I mean, it's been proven that vertical ventilation is effective when you can do it. The hard part is coordinating it and being able to do it in a time frame that makes it beneficial for the fire ground. So limited resources departments are really having a hard time, or will have a hard time doing that. And in my department, I mean, when I started, we were a two-man engine company, and we would go to fires. This is before 2 in and 2 out. We'd go to fires, and I would be driving, for instance. We'd stretch a line, I'd set the pump, and we'd go in before the second engine got there.
Wow.
That was just the way we did things back
Right,
then.
right. It was just standard operating procedure.
Standard operating procedure. And the next engine would come in, would be another two-person engine company, and they might secure the water supply, and then we were talking about, if we got on the fire, then we're doing search. We weren't doing vertical ventilation when I first started. It wasn't until we were starting to get to be a bigger department, and we were probably 5 stations, that it then really started to be an option for us to be able to pull. And we started doing it on a regular basis. Now, in some areas, I mean, where we were at that time, we were a 3-person truck company, And so the idea of splitting the ladder truck and doing primary search and doing vertical ventilation, it wasn't possible. But
Right.
we would send additional engine companies, and in my, in my department or in our region, the majority of the primary search is done by engine companies or EMS units, because we're fire based EMS as well. So they're done that way, and that the ladder trucks, limited ladder trucks in the county that I'm in, ladder trucks typically will do a lot of the support functions as vertical ventilation, additional ladders, and those things. And not that they don't do primary search, but that's why we have additional engines there.
Right.
And so when you look at the resource limited department, it's not typically an option for them. And then, I mean, I think back to the days when we were really looking at a lot of this stuff. I'm looking at LAFD, I'm looking at the FDNY, I'm looking at these really big departments. Well, I probably was trying to implement tactics, I guarantee you, early on in my career and being newly promoted, implementing tactics that probably weren't effective at that time, given our staffing levels and our, the resources we were sending to a fire. So um, I think I'm answering that question, but
No, I
it's
think so. And Eddie Ivy was the first question from the audience coming at you, and it's basically just straight down the pipe of what we're talking about. What's your advice for departments that want to be aggressive with ventilation of all types, but have long responses and minimal staffing? And that's basically what you're talking about here.
yeah. I would say, if you can have the amount of resources needed to get to all of the functions that need to be done on the fire ground. Some departments are going to be a little bit heavier on in their IMS or their command, and might support a chief officer with another, officer, a tactical boss or something. But if I'm looking at fire attack, I'm looking at securing a water supply, I'm looking at primary search on the standard, single story dwelling or two-story dwelling. And if I wanted to implement vertical ventilation, you're probably needing 5 suppression rigs there to be able to be able to make that happen. And if you can't get 5 rigs there in short order, then it probably is not the tactic that you need to go to. Now, if you can, then you got to back up all of this with good solid training, because one of the challenges and the arguments that we get into when it comes to vertical ventilation is ventilating on engineered construction, or what some
Sure.
people would call lightweight construction. Is like, we do it all the time. And I know that there's a part of the country that's like, there's no way where we'd ever get on a lightweight roof or a engineered roof. And we're like, well, if we didn't, we'd never be getting on any roofs. And if we didn't go into buildings that had trusses, we wouldn't be going to any buildings to put out fires. And so we're comfortable in that environment. And so having the proper training would help you out in being able to, like, how can you be efficient and how you can be effective with vertical ventilation.
So we'll drill down here a little bit and say, if you only have limited staffing and apparatus, what are your priorities on the fire ground?
Priority is going to be put water on the fire. It's going to be a primary search and support it with some type of horizontal ventilation. That probably can be done with as little as, if you're running command by the officer, probably can be done as little as like 6 people. And you got to back that, depending on if you're in a rural area, you're going to probably need tender or tanker supply, whichever you guys call it. And if you're not in the rural area and you got hydrants, then you're going to need somebody to help you get your water supply. So um, my priorities would be water on the fire, primary search, horizontal ventilation, followed by vertical ventilation.
There you go. Boom. Boom. Love it or hate it. I mean, I'll get to that one in a second. Scott Hope Jr. wants to know, how does West Coast versus East Coast or geographical location in general affect truck company strategy and tactics?
Wow, these are going to be some great questions. Um,
Only the
first
best
of
for
all,
the scrappers, by the way. Only the
yeah,
best.
yeah. Well, first of all, I mean, staffing is a little bit different. So if you take a FDNY staff ladder truck or Chicago ladder truck, I mean, if they're understaffed when they're at 4, and when I go to my department, 3 is good staffing, 4
Right.
is great staffing. And so you typically have some different staffing, and some of that is just urban department versus suburban departments. But the other thing is East Coast. So to back all of this up, I guess I would say is the, there's a lot of conversation about firefighting is local, and it really is local. It's very difficult for us to have like this is the way we fight fire in the United States, because the different types of construction, the different types of buildings, different type of demographics, different kind of staffing. I mean, it just makes it almost impossible. So really, when we look at it, is firefighting in general is local, or regional, I would say. Then when we're looking at, like, for vertical ventilation and truck operations, now we're talking about the types of construction, because it impacts the way that you're going to utilize a lot of the truck functions. And if we're talking about vertical ventilation, there's more um, engineered structures in the area that I am at than there are conventional constructed structures. Like I said
Mm,
earlier, we just like
right.
that's all we deal with
That's
is
our
engineering.
reality. That's
It's
yeah.
our reality. So you got to be good at it. And I think, for the latter companies that I work with or worked with in our region, they're very good with engineered construction. They know what they can and cannot do. They know how to up space and all that stuff. Whereas on the East Coast, one of the problems is East Coast apartments are more familiar and more comfortable with conventional construction and older construction. So when you get on an engineered roof, for instance, then they're not as comfortable with it. Just the same as I'm just not as comfortable being on, and I couldn't imagine being on a building that's 120
Right.
years old. And like, I'd feel uncomfortable being on it. And yet you could be on it for long periods of time. But I would rather be on the engineered, because I know when it's consuming product, when it's consuming the actual material itself, I can see it and I can deal with it and I know where I can go.
Right.
Whereas, wall bombs or any of the major collapses that had killed a lot of firefighters, you go like, well, why did that collapse? I mean, well, it could have been just that fire was up in the location, and there was rapid failure of these large trusses. And when you do that, especially on like a bowstring or an arch truss, however you want to call it, um, they take large sections. And so when you lose one of those, you can lose like 32 feet of roof
Right.
in the matter of a loss of one single truss. So,
Mm.
so it does get regional, and it does get, East Coast versus West Coast. Most East Coast departments will not get on pitched roofs. And on the West Coast, we get on pitched roofs all the time.
I want to tell you, every once in a while you're freezing video wise, and it's awesome because you'll freeze in a very cute or not flattering way, and it's great.
Really?
The audio sounds great, so it's good.
Okay.
Every once in a while it gets a little roboty. That's okay. It's not unlistenable, but I wanted to mention it. So just so you could be aware. Uh, you ready
Well,
to get?
on my end, I'm not having any issues at all. So
No, it was very brief. It was very brief, but you do freeze every once in a while, and it's sometimes you're
can I freeze with a glass of wine in my?
possible. Possible. Okay, you ready to get personal?
Yeah.
JD Ducharme said Chief Fisher is one of the real ones. For Rob, if you could go back in time and put one goal as a priority for your career, what would it have been? What has something you didn't focus on that you wish you would have?
In leadership, the greatest trait you can have in leadership is developing good relationships. And I think one of my big mistakes early on, I was promoted at an early age. I was immature. I didn't necessarily have the right upbringing. Just in my organization, it was small. There wasn't much for experience in leadership, and so I think I made a lot of mistakes in my relationships early on. I jokingly say when I'm teaching class, and I'm like, I was clubbing seals when I was, a young company officer. And the problem with that is, one, if I want to be a good leader, I got to develop relationships. But two, you know, some of those seals that I club might be my boss later on. And so, if I could go back, I would say I'd be better at developing relationships and not being so hard on people. I mean, I think I was probably pretty difficult to work with, um, especially when we were talking about truck operations. My driver who drove for me for 17 years, Chad Berg, we were two like-minded individuals, and we wanted to get this ladder truck operation stuff and get us as recognized as a dependable ladder company in our county. And I think we did a really good job at it. But in doing so, we we had a lot of collateral damage
Right.
with relationships and stuff. So that would be my big thing if I could go back, is spend more time um, really having a better understanding of the impact of relationships, emotional intelligence, all that kind of stuff, and how I could make sure I foster them for the future.
No, I love it, and that's the paradox of it is that as now that you're older and wiser, a little longer in the tooth, so to say, or maybe a little more gray in the mustache, uh, it's that's when you appreciate it because there was no way you could have appreciated, even if you could go back and say, "Hey, I'm Rob from 2023. Listen to me, Rob from 1997," or insert whatever year. You need to develop relationships. Could he have heard it even? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Or does it take that maturity and wisdom? That's the part that's so tough. It's great, and I hope people very young take to heart what he is saying and apply it. But I don't know. It's almost like you have to experience the downfall of make the mistakes to learn it. Does that make sense?
I mean, I would say probably if I were trying to talk to myself, I wouldn't listen. Can I mean, you were right on. I got promoted in 97. So, and I can't
Oh,
remember, I
yeah.
was like 26 years old when I got promoted.
26 and probably knew everything about the world.
Oh, dude. I, if I could have written a book or whatever. But yeah, I think what it would have taken is a really strong leader, that would grab me and probably would have to just club me,
Right.
really just like get me and just really get me to recognize it. And I've often thought like I grew up in the the greater Seattle area when I was a kid, and it goes back to like when I wanted to be a firefighter. I was 5 years old. I remember my first visit to Station 21 in Greenwood in Seattle. But the whole time, I mean, I always wanted to be a firefighter. The whole time, I always thought I was going to be a Seattle firefighter. I always thought that I was going to be an urban style firefighter. I wanted to be that style. Well, it didn't happen. I got into a really small department. I was in suburban, in a suburban department, and I think if I would have been in the urban department, it probably would have been a lot different. But I believe, be it that it's, you believe in God or you believe in religion, but things happen for a reason. And I believe I was destined to be where I'm at so that I can be a connection for, lessons learned. I'm coming out of my career, but lessons learned, and just the idea that, um, trying to show other firefighters that you don't have to be from some big city fire department to be good at your job, assuming that some people think that I'm pretty good at my job.
Right.
But you don't have to be from the big city fire department to teach and be good at your job. That you can be a student of the game, and you can be good, and you can share information and help motivate others like you, which there's way more people like me, or way more firefighters like me, than there are big, urban busy firefighters.
Love it, man. Thank you for the question, JD. Love the answer. Absolutely love it. Um, Jared Throneberry, it's right in that. So I want to throw this way. Jared Throneberry says, Rob, when building relationships, what's your main staple for establishing those relationships? What's your go-to skill, so to speak?
Well, what I'm working on now, or what I've been working on the last handful of years, and which is, it's kind of funny, that we did the 9 Ls together. But what I've always been working on, I think it's a it's a skill that everybody has to work on, is listening. So I think that when you're going to try to build a relationship, and this is a challenge that we have, Jody and I have talked about this. You and I have talked about this. When you get paid to teach or to talk, they hire you to come in and lecture, and you're constantly lecturing. It kind of programs you to be more of a talker than a listener, and it takes a conscious effort to listen. And so I think the biggest thing that you can do in developing relationships is just keep your mouth shut. Simple introduction, tell me a little bit about yourself, start learning people, and then really listen to them.
Mm,
And then you got to be consistent. You got to be genuine. You got to come at them, and you got to care about them. I can't remember the exact saying that, Commander Mooney said when I was going to the LAFD Leadership Academy. Commander Mooney was, the one that crashed the U.S. submarine and caused hundreds of millions of dollars in the submarine. He was let go of his duties as a marine, or I'm sorry, as a submarine commander, and he tells this whole story. But one of the things he talked about is you got to be at every funeral, every wedding, and every born child of your crew, and that those are the important things, important dates. And as a good leader, you're always there and you're always remembering those with your members, because they're going to remember the fact that you acknowledge them on their wedding, you acknowledge them when they had their first child, and you were there for them when they lost their parent or whatever it is. And those are the keys. So that's being genuine. That's caring about your people and showing them that you care, and being there for them constantly. So that's what I do to help develop those relationships.
Boom. I love it, man. I do love it. And that's what cracks me up is you talk about how you're not a good listener. You're like, I don't know why you had me on for the third L or the second L, which yeah, I get my L's mixed up. Why would you have me on for listening? And because you're one of my favorite people to talk to because you listen so well. I can bounce so many ideas off you. You're such a good sounding board. I
Jody,
know you.
I know my wife's watching right now, which, hey honey, I love you. She's in Vegas. I'm up here in Washington, but um she Jody, hopefully you're
What
hearing what I'm
Courtney's
saying.
saying.
It's Corley's yeah. I
Well,
appreciate
no,
it, man. I'll give you $5 later.
no, I even called you the other day because I'm working on this new class for firemanship. It's the Culture Forge, and I'm excited about it. I'm very pumped. But I called you, said, dude, I got to run this by. I need to run by everything I'm thinking about for this, and I need to sound it off you. You know what I'm saying? Because you are a phenomenal sounding board.
I
So
appreciate it.
I know I'm just complimenting you right now, but no, one thing you said to bring up, and I want to talk about it, which is you got to catch one of my classes, the 9Ls, and afterwards you gave me some of the most candid feedback I've ever received.
Mind you, you asked.
I did.
Like,
No, 100%.
okay. I wasn't like, hey Corley, let me give you some
Here's
let
the
me give you
deal,
some.
buddy. Yeah. No,
No,
I'm always after feedback, always. And I'm telling you this, and I tell I love when people tell me how great the class is. I love when people say it's a great class, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But uh, when people tell you it's great, it's worthless.
yeah.
It feels good. Don't get me wrong. And please do not take this in a way that I don't want to hear people say it's a great class. Okay. So please keep saying that. But when you're after feedback, man, this is the part that sucked. This is the part that wore me out. This is the part that I thought drug on too long. This is, all of those things.
Well,
Phenomenal. Go ahead.
let me just say, if you want to tell Corley or any one of us or anybody that's teaching that's a great class, don't just say that's a great class. It's like with anything. If you're going to give them negative feedback, like Corley, I think you have too much going on in your class, and here's the reason why, and here's how it affected me, and why I can tell you why I think this is, you're too much action in your class. Well, you should do the exact same thing when you're giving somebody positive feedback. You're like, I think your class is great because you covered this, because you address these things, and it associates with issues that I'm dealing with in my life or in my professional life. So, because you're right. I mean, it's like when we talk about when we were talking about the listening and everything, and I always say I use the word awesome, and you use
100%.
100%.
100%.
Right. And those becomes things that we do that are just like
White
just
noise.
like it's a white noise, but it's just it's a response, just like almost you know um, um, a reflex style
Yeah.
response, that you just fill the space up, when in reality, I do think a lot of those things are something other than awesome, phenomenal, great, all
Right.
the, but you've got to put something behind it. You can't just say, hey, that was a great class. It's like, back it up with something.
No, and worthless is not the right way to say it. It's worthless as feedback. It's awesome to hear. It's a great compliment. It is phenomenal to boost the ego and boost the uh, feel good. You know what I'm saying? But as far as
Yeah.
feedback goes, and as far as making it better, it's worth about 10% of a candid, honest. I don't want to just say just negative, because you're not just looking for
Mhm.
negative sake, but constructive criticism.
Yeah. And I'll back up again.
Okay.
I got to have lunch with a good buddy, and somebody that I've known for a long time and used to work for our department, and he moved on, and he comments a lot on my posts on Facebook when I'm talking about leadership stuff. And so we met for lunch to discuss retention and recruiting challenges in the fire service, and different perspectives. And one of the things he said, which ties to giving people feedback, is over flattery is terrible. It's a bad trait to have, because it makes you disingenuine or
Yeah.
disgenuine, I guess the word would be.
Disingenuous. Heh, we're
Disingenuous. You
close. We're
can't
close.
even say it, but
Yeah.
not genuine. How's
Right.
that? Okay.
Inauthentic.
Inauthentic. Yeah.
We'll just make up words.
Yeah. But but the problem is that when you overflatter, it really I mean, initially it's like, hey, thank you. And then you start going, there's something wrong with this individual.
Right.
This is not right. This shouldn't be this way. They shouldn't like me that much or like this that much. And then now they're not genuine at all.
Right.
And then you should be able to read through that.
No, no. And one thing to say, because Michael Ramirez posted this and he said, how do you do that without coming off as a know-it-all? And it's a great point, because me and Rob have a great relationship. And it ties right back into what Rob was talking about earlier, relationships. So he can come up and tell me anything, and I know he's doing it
From a
to make me better, not because. And so the relationship has to be there to be able to give candid. So I guess that is a solid point. You
yeah.
can't just go up and give people negative criticism when they don't know you,
Yeah.
unless.
When you've developed a good relationship with somebody, it's like spouses. You should be able to give great feedback to your spouse on things. You should be able to talk to them about anything. And that sometimes it's going to piss them off and
Right.
sometimes it's going to make them super happy. But because of your relationship with them, it's the right thing to do. And they should be able to understand where you're coming from
Right.
versus just meeting somebody for the first time and going, wow, that was such a great class, which you could say that, but to be able to give somebody negative feedback and you don't even know them is like, it's all based on a relation. I mean, relationships is the key for just about everything that we're talking about in the fire service, because if the biggest challenge we have in the fire service is dealing with people,
That's
be
it.
it that it's our own people or the people that we're serving. That is the greatest challenge that we deal with. And so if you don't have good relationships, the ones that you can develop with those that you're working with, then it's just going to be more of a challenge.
I love it. And Dirk Janiak said 100% great class. The only thing that would have made it a better comment was if he said 100% awesome, great class. Got all the catchphrases in.
Well, I think your class is awesome, but it just runs. It's pretty fast for me. But
It is a fast pace.
yeah,
Again, and I appreciate the feedback. I love the feedback.
I worked on a ladder truck, so I got to go a little slower for me.
I reference.
Yeah, all right.
John Shackelford coming at you said, what's the most important skill for a new officer when light staffed?
When light staffed. Well, accept the fact that you're light staffed and I think sit down and with your limited staffing crews and figure out, what's the most effective way we can do things. Look to the bigger departments for how they do things because it makes them efficient, but realize, which is probably one of the lessons that I've learned, realize that you can't implement the way they're doing things. It just isn't going to happen.
Mhm.
Train every day. I mean, that's if there's I don't train every day. I mean, I'd be lying to you if I said I trained every day. I tried to train. I mean, back in the day, I trained every day. I trained
Mhm.
sometimes multiple times in a day. But here in the later parts of my career, and not just because I'm a battalion, because I think battalions one of the things that they detach themselves from their crews too easily, and they're too administrative. The quality of a good BC is a BC that's out training with their crews on a regular basis. It doesn't mean that they have to do all the training, but they should be out there while they're training so that they know what the capabilities of the crews are and they know what the fire ground tempo is going to be. So depending on if it's from the perspective of BC, you need to be out there so you know what your limited crews can do and how quickly they can do things. If it's from the company officer perspective and if you're talking about limited, if it's less than 3, you and your other firefighter have to train together every single day. And, I guess that's all I would say is just regular training to make sure that you guys know what you're capable of doing. If you're going to sit back and go, man, we'll just cross that bridge when we get there, it ain't
Yeah.
going to happen. You're going to have your asses handed to you. So
And to bring it full circle, I don't think anything forges a stronger relationship than shared hardship, like shared struggle through rigorous training. Or
sweat
that's
and
it,
blood
man.
together, dude. I just think back. Well, you can look at any of battles, wars, anything, and the brother and sisterhood that's brought together of units that um, had battled together and bled and sweat and everything else. Same thing in the fire ground. When you bleed and sweat together training and you do it on the fires and you go through some serious shit, which we do in our profession, it's only going to pull you guys and gals closer together.
Love it. Cameron Cooper coming at you. He's right here in Oklahoma. My young brother. He says, Rob, what is your standard staffing on truck and engine companies? And do you have established roles / jobs for those writing? Example, like the FDNY having the Ironsman.
Yeah. So in my region, outside of the city of Seattle and maybe the city of Seattle has 4-man minimum staffing across the board, all engines and trucks. But in my region, in my county, 3-person staffing is what you see on the trucks. On occasion, you will have a 4th on the ladder. And one of the things that was unique back when I was working on a ladder truck, because we were fire-based EMS, our transport, be it was a medic unit or a BLS unit, it changed over the years. The 2 on the EMS unit were part attached to the ladder truck. So we would have a 3-person ladder company, 2-person EMS unit. And when we would go to fires, we would go together as kind of, I don't want to call it a light force, which was a LAFD term, but we would go together paired,
Right.
and they would function as the 2-person inside team, which would do the primary search. And we would function as all the outside stuff. So we took care of ground ladders and vertical ventilation. So our staffing was 3. And we did one of the first things we did early on in developing our truck company operation culture was tool and job assignments is the way we called it. But some people call it, your assigned job or whatever it may be. But we had tool and job assignments. So it breaks down real quickly for the specific jobs that we were going on. So if we were going to be going to a smoke in the building, this is what you carried. If we were going to a working structure fire in a dwelling, this is what, and we were going to do vertical ventilation, this is what we did. So it broke it all down. And the cool thing back in that time period is we were transitioning from firefighters having to be told by the company officer, I should say firefighters being told by company officers when to get their mask on, when to grab, what to grab, all those things. And we were trying to streamline this system and go, these firefighters are smarter than we give them credit for. They can figure out that we're going, if I say, hey, we're going to the roof for ventilation, my firefighter should quickly be able to memorize what equipment is required when we do vertical ventilation. So
Right.
we had cheat sheets on the ladder truck. Most of them, well, everybody had them all memorized. But yeah,
More autonomy, more responsibility, more empowerment, do you think, on the
absolutely.
individual? Yeah, okay, okay.
It's perfect for leadership because when they then start testing for, or when they get their checkoffs for driver, or their checkoff for company officer, they've now been through making decisions on their own and knowing when to do it. I mean, it made them a lot better leader down the road versus always being told what to do. And then one day, all of a sudden you're telling everybody what to do. And it's a different way to approach it. And I think it's a really good way to do it.
Strong.
We went as far as making tool and job assignments for the engine companies, and they're still in effect today. And I think we started them probably 22 years ago,
Oh,
and
wow. Oh,
they're
wow.
still around. Yeah,
That's awesome. Um, Scott Hope Jr. asks, you get assigned a new crew member. This is very specific here. You get assigned a new crew member to your truck company that has a pathological fear of heights. How do you address this as the company officer and from a standard leadership perspective? No soft tosses. I don't, yeah.
they have a fear of heights.
Pathological, apparently.
Yeah. Wow. I wasn't expecting a question like that. I
I
guess
was not either. I got halfway through it and I'm like, oh boy, have fun, Rob.
it would be. Okay, let me just kind of answer it. So I'm kind of giving myself a little bit more time to think about this. From my region, the way when they all go to the academy together, there's plenty of things that they're doing that this would be addressed at the fire academy, probably before they're even assigned to the crew.
Hmm.
And a fear of heights is probably a pretty hard thing to have in being a firefighter. It would be like, hey, I don't do really well with blood and vomit and
Right.
all this other stuff. So if you can't palate that, then you will have a hard time in this profession, and it will be very, very difficult on you. So I would think that it would be resolved. I can only speak for my region. It would be resolved probably in the time period that they're at the academy and they're transitioning into being a pro B in our department. But if they made it through all of that and never got recognized, and now they're coming to my company, I'd have a first. I'd be 100% honest with them. This is going to be very difficult for you,
Hmm.
and that we need to get you over this because this is just not going to work.
Right.
And I can do what a lot of company officers would do, try to pass you off to somebody else and just sweep it under the carpet, or we can address it and try to take care of it. And I can coach them through, I think, I mean, I know that you said pathological, but I think most fears can be faced
Right.
and can be learned. You can learn to deal with them and manage them. And I mean, I'll be honest with you, when in my day of being on a ladder truck, I was like, I could climb up the ladder real quickly and jump on the roof and run all around, and I felt really good. Well, probably a few years ago, the crews were training, hey chief, come on up here, and I go to climb the ladder. I'm like, whoa. And I get on the roof, I'm like, oh, is this should you know I
Yeah.
like, you lose a little bit. And when you're not there, you start, your senses start coming back to like, this is not a good place to be. Whereas I desensitized those when I was
Right.
regularly on roofs. So I think you can work with the individual, and I would spend the time, and if they've made it through probation and they're still in our department, then they're worthwhile, and it would be worth the time for me to work with them. But I would be very straightforward and honest with them. If we can't figure this out, I'm going to probably make a recommendation that you would need to figure out another career.
Another career. No, and that's what I would want to tack on to Rob's beautiful answer, which is if if you have a standard that they need to operate at a certain level, then they need to operate at that level. And if they can't, hopefully you can coach them to that point, mentor them, and get past whatever difficulties and uh, overcome those things. But if they cannot, the standard's the standard, and that's it. That is it.
That is it.
All right. Good answer. Great answer, Rob. Um, Eddie Ivy wants to know, talking search, what was your approach to teaching fresh from academy firefighters? Skills you prioritized, scenarios you put them in, etc.
Ooh, at the academy, is that what
At
it?
the academy. Fresh.
Fresh at the academy, it's skills, I would say. And I was never, again, I'll back up my what I said earlier, is like, we were, as a ladder company, we spent a lot of the time doing vertical ventilation ground ladder work because we had others that were doing search. And I felt pretty good about search. I teach with Brothers in Battle, which is pretty serious about search. And
Oh yeah.
so I'm comfortable with it. But I think that at the academy, we probably spent a lot of time on skill acquisition and working on those. But towards the end of the academy, I mean, one thing I'm really proud about my county and our fire academy and those that are teaching at it, and is that we transition those recruits into thinking on their own down the road, and so they're having to make decisions on their own. Um, and everything can be broke down. I mean, like, when is it good to enter the room? I mean, that's a skill. Even though it's a decision that you got to make, but should we enter that room or not? Is it
Right.
defensive search? Is it should I shut the door? Should I do these things? And like, that's all skill stuff. Whereas the company officer, or probably the more senior individual, is the ones like, well, I would go as far as saying the recruit should be able to determine where they should be searching first. And so that's not really that big of a deal, but maybe trying to do search ahead of the line. Um, VES isn't that big of a deal. I know some people have a cow about it, especially in our region. At least a few decades ago, it was like unheard of doing VES, and now it's more popular. But um, I think searching ahead of the hose line, which I do know I still owe you an article, buddy. Searching ahead of the hose line, without, or searching without a hose line in the building, or at least on your floor, can be a little bit challenging. It needs a little bit more experience to be able to do that. But just at the academy, I would say we probably spend 80% of the time in skill work.
Love it. No, and I was gonna pick a random name on here and say, so and so wants to know, when is that article gonna be finished? Uh,
let me give some context to this. I and I'm this is a bad part of Rob Fischer here is I was asked by Corley to help him out with an article for something a project he's working on, and I said yes, I'm all in. And then we jokingly talked about, man, can it just is so hard sometimes when individuals don't follow through and finish up on their end. I'm like, I know, I hate those individuals. The article was due, if I remember correctly, the 15th of November, and I still haven't turned it in. So I am that individual, and uh, I'm
that's
just
no. I've
I'm
t- I,
just
yeah,
glad the project is so big that you're not to the
I
point where
haven't been able to get my arms around it, so you're fine. You're in the mass because it's huge. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be awesome.
it is going to
Um,
be awesome.
what was I gonna say? There was something.
I threw you off. I love it.
Completely a squirrel. Uh,
We're at almost an hour into this. We've only
we got to two questions we had planned. I like this one though. This comes from Dirk Janiak. Firefighters are generally hesitant to give constructive criticism when asked. How can you get honest feedback? And that's a great question. That really is a great question.
well, Dirk.
'Cause- Go ahead.
I was just going to Dirk. It's good. Thank you for logging in and listening to this. We've talked over the years, and he's part of the Fools, and so it's great to hear from.
He's very
Um,
active on the scraps, always.
oh, good, good. So, well, one, it's again it goes back to establishing relationships, and
Yeah.
you know, it's just to get the feedback and without the relationship and developing that, it makes it really difficult. So, I I don't know. I'm curious. What do you think?
Well, me
You
and you
you
were
ask you ask me all the questions, and
no, no, I know, but me and you were on the phone the other night because we were talking about this scrap, and I said I just read a brief. I'm doing all the research for the Culture Forge, and I was reading the books on Netflix culture, and they did a thing with a anonymous feedback form that you could give feedback to your boss, and but it was anonymous, and
oh
and Reed Hastings, the CEO, was like, if the only way you can be honest is to hide your name, if the only way you can be honest is to be anonymous, there's something wrong.
yeah,
And I think that's the big reason why people can't give honest feedback is because there's repercussions. There are vindictiveness. They're afraid of harming their career, harming their promotional, uh, so that's a cultural issue. If you can't get good, candid feedback, there's a systemic problem, and so that's a very, very, very broad topic.
let me build off of that just a hair. And I know I'm not gonna do a bunch of name dropping, but Brian Keys, you better be still watching this. I was talking with him earlier today, and this kind of is a topic that comes up, and I think the reason why I struggle at moving above battalion, and I will say I had a struggle getting into battalion, and that's not be it was just like my bosses were going, I don't know if we want this guy there.
Right.
Is that um fortunately and unfortunately, I'm too honest and I'm too direct, and that has a hard it's hard on people. And I own some of it because I should be able to, if we use emotional intelligence, which Kurt always talks about, and I love when Kurt says, I'm working on my emotional intelligence. But one of the
Great Kurt,
pillars.
by the way.
Thank you. I've been with them a lot, so I know how to. But one of the things is your ability to be able to evaluate other people's emotions and be able to evaluate other people. And it's a general. I'm using it as a general one of the
Sure,
pillars.
sure.
But if you can't read people and understand people, then you're really going to have a hard time. And that's one of the things. Like I can't that look. I'm going to tell it to you straight. That again, that goes back to me just punching people in the face, or being 100 pounds of pressure 100% of the time. It does not work. And so if you're going to develop relationships and you're going to be honest with people about things through and I know this was anonymous stuff, but if you have to be anonymous about what you're saying, I struggle with that. I don't think that's not a good culture, and I will always have a problem with that. And it's got me into a lot of trouble, and I think it prevents me or yeah, it prevents me from moving up to higher ranks than where I'm at because I'm like a no bullshit type of person. You can ask anybody I work with, and sometimes I tell the wrong people what I believe and why, and I don't recognize the fact that, hey Rob, this is probably you shouldn't have even said that. This is probably a time you should shut
Yes.
up. And I double down and I'm
Right,
like,
right.
oh, you didn't like that? Let me give you some more
Here's
shit.
some
Take
more. Here,
this. Yeah.
eat this.
Eat this, choke on this one.
No,
And
and it's tough. And we like I said, I'm going to tell a quick story here. I'll try to make it quick because I don't want to derail your scrap. The I did and the vigilantes know this because I shared the story with the vigilantes. But I did a recently. I adopted Eric Lang, Biscayne County. He sent me a thing on honesty, humility, trust, HHT. Man, I'm getting it wrong. So
oh, cool.
it was a really cool evaluation process you could use. I wanted to use it for my company officers to evaluate each other. But before I ran it out blind, I wanted everybody on my shift or my battalion to use it on me, right? And I sent it out to him. It was anonymous because again, I said, hey, you don't have to put your name on it or anything. Just let me know what you think of how things are going because I need feedback, right? Be careful if you do that because you're going to get feedback. And I'm telling you, when I got the feedback, my defenses were firing. When people told me stuff, I mean, they could rate you on a scale of 1 to 7, okay? And some of my people rated me a 1.5 and a 2 on some of these things that you could be rated on, okay? And so my defenses were like, what? What is what
Do
did
they
they give?
not do they not know me?
Yeah, dude, what did they give that guy over there? What, I'm
Yeah.
telling you. And it was like, and I really had to step back and look in the mirror. And this is the part I wanted to make the point about was what the coolest part was the people that rated me the lowest, even though it was anonymous, they signed their names. And it wasn't in a vindictive, like, this is how I feel, sign my name. And it wasn't like that kind of way. It wasn't rebellious or anything. They actually signed their name, said, if you want more information or more feedback on this, please reach out. And after getting over my initial defensive shock, I actually got to call them and say, thank you for being so honest and actually had good, super productive conversations about it. So, I don't know the point on that about the anonymity and the, like, if you actually give people the ability to do so, they can be very, very, very constructive, and they will sign their name to it. Was the whole takeaway. Depending on if they feel like they're going to get punished. But anyway, so
Well, it comes down to likelihood is that too many leaders would, be it that it's punish or come
vindictive,
off or
yeah,
vindictive, all those
punitive,
things.
yes,
Too many leaders do it. I mean, I don't know if I were to give it a number, I would probably say it's at least 70% of the leaders that are out there, or more, they struggle with feedback. They struggle, and so you got to give it with, like, I'm just giving you these things and then back up. I mean, right now my department is doing a survey on a bunch of stuff, and this is the third time we've done it. And the second time we did it, there was a lot of really harsh comments that were made. And the problem is that when you make things personal and attack people, you're not going to get very far with things. But be listening. If you're in a leadership role and you have a hard time with feedback or you have a hard time with people being honest with you, you probably should figure out doing something else because that is what leading is all about. And you better have some thick skin. You better be comfortable being criticized. You better be comfortable being questioned. All of those things. If you can't do that, you're going to have some challenges of being a leader. Now, the challenges is just like you just turn around and just say, this is what I'm doing and how I'm going to do it. And you don't take any feedback at all. And then guess where you're at?
right,
You're at a place where everybody is going to give you poor feedback. They're going to be very personal with it, and they're not going to put their names to it
right.
because they don't want to have you attack them. And
Well, they can't afford it. Yeah, honestly, their careers can't afford it.
in a perfect world, we should be able to have conversation, and I should be able to say, Corley, I don't like the fact that you don't wear shorts.
Right.
When we're out
That's
at the
weird.
beach, it is weird. When we're out at the beach, you should be in shorts, not pants. You're the only person I know that wears pants to the beach.
Look, my legs have to be protected by a thin sheet of fabric of some sort. Okay.
But I can tell you that because we have a
Right.
relationship.
No doubt. Hey, believe
So
me, it's weird.
we're gonna be relationship
I
aspect.
also can't stand next to a bed for any length of time. Like, I have to jump in the bed because there might be something under there that's gonna grab my feet.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's a real thing.
Okay, all right. Amanda's got to work on some things for you.
Okay. Anyway, where were we at? Dirk completely derailed the scrap with that current question on constructive criticism. There was another point I was going to make, but it's gone poof to the wind. I love it. What is the most important core value? This comes from Joe Gavita. The most important core value you have carried with you. Man, I'm going to leave that one alone, Joe, because that's too close to the 5 questions. So we're not even going to touch that one. I cut it off midway. What is your advice? I got a couple questions coming at you in this regard. What is your advice on motivating a crew to train on basic skills, like pulling a handline, throwing a ladder, forcing a door as a new guy?
My advice.
How do you keep them
Well,
motivated for the basics?
all of my mentors or those that I looked up to and that were great in their profession, they would always say, be good at the fundamentals, be good at the basics. And a lot of that stuff is being good at the basics. And we'll just use masking up. I did a podcast the other day and I think I talked about masking up as well, but masking up. And if you're not good at the basics, it takes you forever to mask up. An example, when I was in the training division, we used to, back in the day, we would time everybody quarterly on their pack time. So how quickly you can put their pack on. It was the state standard was 1 minute and the partner was 5 seconds. And so everybody would just and we would do it in an unrealistic environment. You would lay out your pack perfectly on the bay floor, everything's ready to go, and you would put on your pack, and guys could throw their packs on and their mask, everything. Time.
Time.
They could do it in 25 seconds.
Right.
So then it became real popular to start, hey, just mask up. Go from standby. You're on the fire ground, you're standing at the front of the building, hey, Moore, we need you to go in. Put your mask on your face. How quickly does it take you? So a lot of these guys that were doing 25-second mask up times, we're doing 25-second SCBA times. We're doing 25-second mask up times. I'm like, how is that possible?
Right.
You can put your entire pack on
right
in 25 seconds, but you can't just put your mask on your face in 25 seconds. And that goes into, like, we do things in cycles, and you get it. And when I take you out of a cycle and I put you into one piece, it's hard to do. But really what it comes down to is, if you can do the basics, like masking up, and you just do it over and over again, then as long as you do it on a regular basis, it will be easy for you to do things. It's no effort whatsoever. It allows for you to be able, I guess the thing that I would tell you is if you do the basics over and over again, throwing a ground ladder, stretching a hose line, masking up, just those things, and you do it over and over, it becomes second nature, cliche to say that. But what it allows for you to do is it allows for your brain to be able to do other things.
Frees up that bandwidth.
Yep. Creates more bandwidth, right? And so now you start to see the fire, you start to hear other things, you start to do all this because your body is not thinking about, how do I stretch the line? Am I grabbing it just right? Am I doing this just right? And then I would bet, if you're really into the job, or crews are, say, like, do you think the football team for, right now, the national championship is going to be Michigan and Washington Huskies? And do you think those two teams that are right now considered to be the best in the nation, is the past plays, are they doing it over and over and over and over and over and over and over? Yes. And these guys have been playing football since they were probably 10 years old, and they're in their 20s. And these receivers are probably have caught hundreds of thousands of passes, and they're still doing it over and over again. And it's just so they can create their ability to be able to just make it, it's just autonomous, and it's just nothing they have to think about. So how I would do it is I would use those as an example, and I would just push that understanding the basics, being good at the basics and the fundamentals will basically make you better at everything else down the road.
Beautiful, man. No, I love it. I think it's a phenomenal answer, man. I think it's a phenomenal answer. It's the answer I would. That's why I love you. That's why I love you. A bad leader will destroy a good team.
Oh,
Frank Vespucci
Viscuso.
posted. Yeah.
He posted that today on Facebook, and that's
Yes.
why,
Yeah, you posted. I wanted to throw some stuff at you.
yeah. Man, I've been on this. I've had a really rough couple of years, and some of it is everything that we've been talking about, and some mistakes that I've made in developing relationships, a mistake I made about being too critical and not being able to evaluate the people I'm being critical with, and I mean, just the list goes on, and I don't want to come off as I work for a screwed up fire department and I'm the greatest and they just don't recognize it. I do think I'm pretty good. I do think that I'm dedicated to our profession, but I've made my mistakes. But the the last few years, at least the last year, I've been very critical of leadership, and I've been spending a lot more time in trying to understand leadership. And Frank posted this out, and I'm just like, this is. I mean, it's an easy statement, but bad leaders destroy good organizations. And Chief Rhodes, Dina Ali, Dina wrote an article about how a lot of our challenges with mental health is because poor leadership and some of the challenges that we have with leadership. Well, when I read that article, I'm like, oh my God, this is
Yeah.
great.
Yes.
But is it really this? And then getting backed up by Chief Rhodes, and someone's like, it makes a lot of sense. And when you think about what a leader does, is a leader is not only um, effective for the organization to get things done, but a leader has an impact in the people that are working for them, right? And
Yes.
so the decisions I make as a leader, how I handle my people, how I handle has an impact on my people. And when I'm a shithead, when I'm, not 100% being Rob Fischer, there's a negative impact to that. And it really does erode uh, an organization. I mean, I'll start off with a company. And if you don't, I mean, I'm going to tie it right back to relationships. If you don't have a good relationship and you haven't, created um, credits, so relationship credits, earn those credits with your people so that you can have a day that you fuck up. Hopefully, you
Right.
guys don't have any problem with that. If you haven't worked on that and you haven't created a credit, then it just doesn't work for you. And so
Mhm.
relationships is the key here. And when you're sour on your relationships and you're just not a good leader, you're going to destroy the organization.
I love it, man. Dude, great answer. I want to get this one in here. William Seeley wants to know, Chief, how do you deal with it when you are the type of person that is a straight shooter and it makes you the a-hole? My department is all about being the popular guy versus the person that calls out the BS.
Yeah,
Nothing but
it's
nothing but soft tosses.
yeah. I wish Frank Vescusa was on with us because I would turn this over to Frank. He's got a lot more experience in this stuff. God, the problem is you really got to evaluate, maybe spend a little bit more time understanding emotional intelligence. And I know
Mhm.
I brought it up, but so you can understand the environment that you're in, because one of the other pillars of emotional intelligence is understanding the social aspect of things, so you can evaluate your social surroundings and how you have impact with the surroundings, and how it impacts you. So I would spend a little bit of time studying emotional intelligence, and having a good grasp of that, so that the situations that you're in, because there's extremes in things, and
Right.
never does one extreme is it better than the other. And I can say, look, if I mean, here's the one thing that's nice about being a straight shooter and no BS, is everybody can read you like a book, but sometimes the book sucks, right? And so just because they can read you like a book, you're like, you know what, I'm not going to read this book, and that's the problem. And so you want to be a book that's worth reading,
Mm.
and if that's the case, you've got to appeal to your audience. And those who know me know that I don't appeal to my audience very well, and I'm very critical of a lot of the of my audience, I guess. And um and but I try to get better at it. I'm not good at it. I could be way better at it. So I think that just have to learn how you can give that no BS feedback. and be a straight shooter. And it goes back to, and again, this gets brought up. Kurt brings it up. A few people bring up. It's like, oh, Rob Fisher's 10 pounds of pressure, 100%. I want to go on record. I know I've said it
I
before,
was going
but
to bring it up, but go ahead.
but I didn't come up with this. I stole. I don't want to even say I stole it. I learned it from a guy by the name of Andy Spire, who was he worked in a neighboring department to mine, and he came from FDNY, a little short Jewish guy, and I love him, and we had a great time together. But he was tenacious. He was a pit bull with people, but he would always say, Rob, you got to make sure it's only 10 pounds of pressure 100% of the time, because when you do the reverse, 100 pounds of pressure 10% of the time is like punching somebody in the face. You're not going to get stuff done. And if you want to get movement on things, you've got to be able to evaluate how much can they handle and be able to push just enough. It's for those, well, I mean, today's generation probably don't know how to use a clutch unless you're riding motorcycles. But the way you get the car moving with the clutch is you got to give a little bit and a little bit of gas, and it's a balance between the two. A little too much on either end, and you're gonna
Stalling
stall
out
it.
for
So
you.
there you go.
You're making some horrendous noises.
It doesn't look good. Now that's for all the old guys that
Right.
drove sticks back when we were in high school and stuff.
Love it, man. Dude, that was a phenomenal answer. I love it. I had to timestamp
Phenomenal,
it. Phenomenal.
awesome,
100%.
100%.
No, be a book that's worth reading. That is such I love that answer, because sometimes the book does suck.
Yeah.
And the book is true, but that doesn't mean that people want to hear it. And so, William, I hope you understand that I love it, man. Be a book worth reading. And here's the cool part. It comes full circle, going back into big old giant arrows back on each other, goes back to relationship, because
Yeah.
if you have a relationship, then you can give candid and be a straight shooter. And that's what it comes down to. And then you can actually be the a-hole that people want to hear from, because they value what you're saying because of the relationship.
Yeah.
You
I mean, two things. One, I would say I get that, be a book worth reading. 'Cause I'm working on, I'm going to be retiring in a little bit, and I'm working on, like, if I'm going to have a speech, and if I did, what would I say to these young firefighters? And one of the things that I want to say, and one of the things I've learned is, like, have a story worth telling.
mm,
Right. And so that's kind of like where I tie it to with the book. And then the other thing is, when you look at the importance of relationships, I mean, I just cannot, I just cannot emphasize enough how important relationships are. Trust me, I've screwed this up. I have screwed this up in the fire service, and I don't say I pay dearly for it, because I'm happy with what I'm doing. But I've had missed opportunities because of issues with relationships. But if you look at the old idea of the used car salesman, and what does a used car salesman do? They develop the relationship, albeit it's you know disgenuine or disingenuine or whatever the word is, but they work on establishing some type of relationship with you so they can build your trust and your confidence. And when you have a relationship, with that starts building trust and confidence in you. So when you develop a good relationship, genuine relationship, you're gonna be able to build trust and confidence. And with that, gives you that clout, the collateral, to be able to have room for making errors. And you should never be in a situation where you're really good and you've done a lot of building and created a lot of credit and then all of a sudden you make one mistake and you're out. I mean, there's very few things in our profession that should cause you to lose everything.
right on.
But through relationships and through your reputation and all that kind of stuff, is like, gives you some room to have poor judgment. And not that I'm saying you should always have poor judgment, but or poor judgment is good, but we're human. We're
Right.
gonna make poor decisions sometimes. And when you've developed good relationships, you've developed trust, and they're genuine relationships, then you got more collateral there. So
More to draw on. I love it, man. All right, takeaways from the scrap so far. First of all, you're not allowed to use state abbreviations anymore. You have to spell out the name of the state. Second one is we got to figure out from some English majors or people who just are really good with vocabulary what disingenuous or non-ingenuous or whatever the proper word is, because that's the other one. And then the final one is if you want more Rob Fischer because it's amazing stuff, check out Jake Barnes' 3-Point Firefighter podcast. He just did it recently. It's amazing. So, dude, check it out. With all that being said, speaking of a book that's worth reading, Chief,
Oh,
book or books that you think firefighters should be reading. How's that for a segue?
okay. So for firefighters, the one book that I would recommend firefighters to be reading is Random Thoughts by
Mm.
Tom Brennan. It's an it was so for those that haven't been in this profession long enough, Tom Brennan, probably one of the greatest firefighters in American history from the FDNY. He was the editor in chief for a period of time for fire engineering, and he had Random Thoughts, which was the back page or pages of Fire Engineering's magazine. And if you were to ask any firefighter like of my age or right in that age, they'll tell you the first thing you did when you got your Fire Engineering magazine is turn to the back
Flip to
pages
the
and
back.
Random Thoughts by Tom Brennan. Um, Before, well, Bobby Halton in fire engineering, I don't even remember the year, but they basically took Tom Brennan when he passed, and I think right now Mike Champo writes the back pages. I don't remember if it's called Random Thoughts.
Yeah, I don't
Um,
know. I don't know if it is still called. I don't know what it's
uh,
branded, but yeah.
but anyways, so they made a book with all of Tom Brennan's random thoughts over. Good God, I mean, it's got to be 10, 15 years worth, and they're awesome. So for a firefighter, it's a great book.
And they're also timeless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I mean, we joke like, well, I don't want to say we joke. We talk a lot as cadres is like, look, we're not teaching you anything new. We're just regurgitating it for the next generation
Right.
to understand and to help you apply it to the way that your staffing levels are or whatever it is. But the reality is everything that's in those articles, Tom Brennan experienced in the 60s and the 70s himself, and he wrote them, and they're still applied. They're still applicable today. So that would be the book for firefighters. Building construction, the art of reading buildings, Dodson and Mittendorf. One of the things that I've always been pushing for firefighters is a good understanding of building construction.
Hmm.
I think it's a separator between a good firefighter and a great firefighter. I think it's a separator between, when you're promoting up to being a company officer. And, I know we get into battles over who's better, the truck or the engine. And those are fun little battles to have. But I would argue that truck officers, if they've gone through a good organization where they've spent some time on an engine and then they, uh, I'll say, promote up to the truck because it's a captain or they've moved over to the truck, they're very well rounded because the truck spends a lot of time, or they should be, on understanding building construction and being able to dissect the building. And so I tell all of our company officers who are getting ready to test for battalion, I'm like, try to get some time on the ladder truck and spend some time working there on, for a few years before you test for battalion, because I think it's going to make you a better battalion. And the big issue is because of building construction. So Mittendorf, Dodson, Art of Reading Buildings. Most everybody wants, Brannigan's book. It's a great technical book for college and stuff, but for good reading and being able to pull stuff out right now, um, the Art of Reading Buildings. And then company officers, Cornerstones of Leadership.
Mm.
That's the one that I'm reading right now. I wish it's almost an excuse to say I wish I had more time to read, but I just got so many things going on. I just find it really difficult to sit down and dedicate the time. And I've never been a really good reader. So if I want to read, I really got to dedicate time and effort to it. So I'm just getting through Lieb's book, and I want to have it done by May so that, when he comes and teaches, actually, I'm going to see him in a couple of weeks when we go to ODP. He's going to be at ODP, but Cornerstones of Leadership is probably one of the better ones up there for
Yes.
the newest ones coming out. 9Ls. If everybody that's on here is already probably bought the 9Ls, but 9Ls is a phenomenal book, awesome book. All the awesomeness.
Audible, specifically the second chapter on the Audible.
Audible is great too. In fact, going back to meeting and having lunch with my buddy Jeremy Stocker, spends a lot of time. We talked about the 9Ls, and he says, I spend a lot of time reading and doing audible books on leadership and listening to all the great militaries and all military leaders and everything. And the American Fire Service, it's really difficult to like kind of distill it down so that it speaks to the firefighter. And the one thing he said about the 9Ls is like that was probably one of the best books in doing so, and that you hit the nail on the head with that. So
Well, thank you
9Ls
for
is
that.
another great book that I would, if you don't have, get it. Particularly, especially listen to the audio. Chapter 2,
Chapter 2 bonus content.
bonus content.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Thank you for that. And Cornerstones of Leadership, phenomenal book by Frank Lee. It just came out last year, because
Yep.
we're in a new year. But just came out recently, and we're getting ready to do a double giveaway. We're going to give away 5 copies of 9Ls and Cornerstones of Leadership. It's going to be a big. We're getting ready to throw that out there. It's coming up pretty quick. So you reminded me of that when you said that. So I wanted to throw it out there.
I wanted to talk some about like leaders and where are our fire chiefs, but I mean, since we're talking about Chief Lieb, I mean, he is probably one of those top leaders. And I don't know how we're going to get into this topic, if we're even going to get into the topic. We don't even have to get into the
We're
topic.
getting ready to, I guess. Go.
Oh, okay. Well, I was just going to say he's one of those top leaders that is out there. He's connecting with firefighters. He was a good firefighter, or he still is a good firefighter. He's at some of the highest level of being a chief officer without being the fire chief. He works in a large organization, so it wasn't easy for him to get up there. He is all of the greatness, and he came on like wildfire in the last 5 years, would be my guess. And he's just an all around. I can tell you, him and his wife are great.
Genuine.
Yeah, absolutely. And just one of the best. And so I can't say enough of good stuff about Chief Lieb. He spends time with you. He will talk to you. From Rob Fischer from Snohomish County speaking to Frank Lieb from the FDNY, and he's just an awesome guy. So he's quality stuff for the American Fire Service, and I hope he's around for a long time.
Brother, I'm telling you, I have never been. We'll sit here and sing Frank Lieb's praise for a minute as far as Scrap 226. One of my company officers went to Pensacola Beach for, I think it was one of the first times Frank was there teaching, and it was at the bar in the Hilton. You know what I'm saying? And he did. The company officer that came from my department did not know who Frank was. You know what I'm saying? But he was like, "Man, I met this guy. He's a chief something in FDNY. He's one of the coolest guys I've ever met. He just treated me like a normal human being." And that's his power, man. He makes everybody feel special. Just there is no, it's a power.
And it's about relationships, and he's genuine. And so you got to take time. You have to listen to people. You can't just talk over people, and you can't be constantly distracted. I mean, there's one thing that just drives me nuts, and you and I talked about this is like leaders, especially those that are above you, and they come to talk to you, and they're scanning the room, like who else is in the room and what's going on, and bam, their phone goes off, and they got to look at the phone. You're like, Frank Lieb, not like that at all. No, when you're talking with Frank Lieb, he's looking in the eyes, and he's talking to you, and there's a lot of stuff going on, and of course everybody wants some time with Frank, and he's able to pull it off. And
it's a gift. It's a gift. I want to emulate and steal from him is to make you feel like the center of the universe while he's talking to you. It's powerful, man. It is. No, you wanted to talk about fire chiefs. Where are the fire chiefs at? You were going to bring it up. I didn't know if you want to bring it up or not.
Well, I'm going to use the F word again. Where the fuck are the fire chiefs when it comes to these conferences? It just bugs me. And going back to like relationships and how you develop relationships is like, as a leader, if you're not with your people, how are you to understand what their needs are,
right,
what they're doing? And so, Corley, you and I, we go to a lot of conferences. And can you I mean, let's just go with the scrap because it was here's my question to you. How many be above battalion? How many chief officers? So that's division chief, deputy chief, fire chief, or whatever, however you guys do chief. How many have been on the scrap?
Oh, brother, you put me on the spot.
I,
No, but I would say, because we talked about it a little bit on the phone the other day, because it kind of was the germ of this question, and I would say there's less than 10.
less than 10.
I think there is out of the 226, and then the first 10 had no guests. So out of 216 with guests, uh, I think less than 10.
Yeah.
I don't want to name names, so I'll leave people
No,
out.
we don't have to name names, but here's my point. And I'm
Thompson,
talking.
I was gonna do names, but I was gonna try and think.
Okay,
Go
well,
ahead.
you want me? Let me give you some names that I remember that are on the scrap. That way, if I forget some, because I'm not watching every single scrap, but
Right.
and I'm talking about active Chiefs. You
Sure.
know, Frank Viscuso is retired. I mean, he provides a lot of content and he does a really good job. But
Huge mentor. Absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm talking about active Chiefs. Scott Thompson,
Correct.
Jason Hovelman,
Correct.
Frank Lieb.
Correct.
Have you had Dan Shaw on?
No, he's on the list that I need to reach out to and have on, but
Okay.
I would say Richard Kelly, OKC's fire chief. He is active and he's getting close to retirement, but
Okay.
very good scrap. I wish I wish I could tell everybody the numbers of the scraps to listen to, because if you haven't listened to Scott Thompson's, I know he was 64 because I was just listening to it the other day. Chief Hovelman's, just recently, a month ago, 2 months ago. Holy smokes!
Great.
I have so many sound bites out of that thing. It is an amazing scrap. Ryan Walt was on.
Reinwald. There. Okay. Reinwald.
It's been
Yes.
a while.
Chief
It's been a while.
Reinwald. My
I think.
point.
Okay,
My
sorry.
point.
There is. I'm going to leave out names. So every chief out there that I've had on, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
But my point is, I mean, this is something that Chief Thompson talks about in his lectures, and he basically discusses the fact that, why doesn't he's like, man, I like coming to firefighter conferences, and it's not just because he can sell books and he can tell his stories of everything, but the way he describes is like, that when you go to a fire chiefs conference and you're at the chief conferences, they're motivated by different things, and he's just like, it's just really hard to fit in there. And I totally get that when you become fire chief or you become an assistant chief, is like, you've got to go to these conferences that discuss things of management, which is things. But I'm telling you, they will say they're talking about managing, or I'm sorry, they're talking about leading people, and it's the same individuals. They're all chiefs. They all got to take care of each other and their egos. They all have alphabets after their name. And where I struggle is like, why aren't our leaders at our conferences? There's so
Right.
many conferences today that there weren't, years ago when I first started going to conferences. But why don't we see them at the conferences? And if you want to have an impact in firefighter lives, and you want to create a great organization, let's just use Chief Thompson. That's a great organization there, and they will do anything for Chief Thompson.
Mhm.
But he is connected to firefighters, not just in the colony, but he's connected across the nation with firefighters. And trust me, he's not doing it to try to sell more books.
Right.
He believes in this stuff. And so, I'm going to put you on the spot again, because here's the thing, is like, if the Chiefs are not going out and going to these conferences, we don't even know who they are. I would hope that the department you're working for, who your fire chief is, and if you're in a large organization, you should know all those. But can you name? We'll use big departments: FDNY, Chicago, LAFD, Houston, Miami-Dade.
Okay.
Do you know any of the chiefs of those departments? The fire chiefs.
The actual fire chief, other than the ones that have, I know some commissioners that have gotten in the news and things like that, and then some despised individuals because of. But anyway, no, I cannot.
And I couldn't either. And I went and I looked it up, and I don't we don't need to go through the names, but when I looked at it, the only one that I knew was LAFD's leader, or LAFD's fire chief, Kristen Crowley. And the only reason why I know her name is that she taught at my my academy, my
I was gonna
leadership
say it's
academy when I
probably
was at the
regional,
LAFD.
almost, more West Coast, so because I didn't know the
Well,
name.
it's just I couldn't even tell. Well, oh, I do know who. I mean, I remember the chief for the LAFD. But the point is that these are the largest organizations in the American
Right,
fire service. They probably have the largest impact. I mean, I left out LA County. I don't even know who LA County's fire chief is, and
right,
they're a big department.
right.
But these are the largest organizations in the American fire service, and I would bet the majority of firefighters and young company officers and chief officers like myself and you couldn't even name their names.
Yeah.
And it's but I tell you what, we can name football players, we can name military leaders because we're reading their books. Okay.
Yep.
We can name football coaches, basketball coaches, we can name all of these people, but in our own profession, we can't name the fire chiefs. And that's not necessarily on us. I mean, should a firefighter study all the fire chiefs of all the largest
Well, are
organizations?
there fire chiefs worth studying is the next question you have to ask because there are some coaches worth studying. Yeah,
Bingo.
yeah.
Those fire chiefs haven't written books. They're not they don't have FaceTime, genuine FaceTime, not just make some, not Skittles and rainbows and bullshit, but genuine FaceTime with their people. They're not out there improving the fire service. And to their, I guess, to defend them a little bit, they're in a position where they're kind of probably isolated and siloed because they're worried about, well, if I write a book, if I take a position, if I make statements, if I go to the wrong conference,
Sure,
my mayor, my elected officials, I'll lose my job.
sure.
Whereas somebody like Chief Thompson, I don't want to say he doesn't care what his mayor thinks. He probably has a good relationship with his mayor, but I almost want to say he probably doesn't really care what the mayor thinks. He has a belief system and he follows his belief system. So it's a thing that bugs me
Mhm.
because we don't know, but we know football players, football coaches,
It's a great question to be discussed.
and the idea of it comes from Josh Materi, who works for Seattle Fire, and he would always, when we teach with Brothers in Battle, and he's not as active as he used to be, but he would always talk about, firefighters, they can know all the data and stats on for their fantasy football team, but they don't give a shit about the stats for firefighting, what we do, which actually saves lives and helps people. And it's just
And I will throw the caveat out there for me and Rob both. I'm sure there are chiefs that are very plugged in and taking care of their people, and we don't know of them because they're not. But the point is valid. The point is very valid. Um,
here's what I will say, and and I hope that Kurt backs me up on this. I tell you what, if there is a fire chief that wants to come to any county fire tactics conference, you get to go for free.
Boom,
Come for free. I know Kurt would back me up on that.
he will.
Um, but
I guarantee you, he will.
yeah, come for free. And I'd love to be able to meet you and hear about your organization and hear about your upbringing and how you came about. And I think we need more people like that because we talk about this challenge in leadership in our in our profession, and nobody's doing anything about it. And when firefighters and company officers and people at our level as battalion chiefs are the ones that are being the critics and trying to figure it out, and we're trying to jockey and do these things, we're not making anything happen. It's got to happen at the top. Leadership has got to be the one that makes this happen. And it just set a good example. Show us. So there you have it.
Love it, man. Okay, which takes us to one of my favorite parts of the scrap. This whole new generation of questions, especially my favorite one, the song question, that evolved. You were at that. You were at that vigilante meetup where that question was born, and so I love it. You've been exposed to the 5 questions for fighters before, so I won't belabor you with too much of the details. But basically, there are no right or wrong answers. The points are arbitrary. They're assigned by me. And the cool part is it's no longer just me. The audience loves typing max points. So it's not just me. But I expect nothing but the best from the best guests ever. So are you ready for the firefighter? The 5 questions for firefighters version 3.2.
Yeah, yes, I
Okay.
am.
Okay, good. Number one, what is the skill that has carried you through your fire service career?
Passion. I think, I don't even know if passion's a skill, but I just love the job so much. I mean, I'm fortunate that I fell in love with the job when I was 5 years old. I just wanted to be. I mean, at that time, and this is 73, 4, 74. I just wanted to be like these. These were monster men that I met, and they just looked like heroes. They looked like they just could do anything, and they were kind, compassionate, at least from what I remember as being a kid. And so all I ever wanted to be was a firefighter. And so I mean, I was fortunate to be brought up in a family that my dad was a hardworking individual. God, he would work long hours, and so I was brought up in the right environment, and having a good work ethic. I think I have a good work ethic, and it just, when you have something as cool as being in this profession, it made it real easy to have passion. And so, I mean, the only other thing, I don't want to say that the second to this, or but it would be just to have fun at work. And so,
Mm.
I just love coming to work and enjoying my time. I'm passionate about what we do. Sometimes passion gets me into a trouble a little bit, when we were talking about earlier. But passion to me, the passion is the thing that got me through.
Boom. No, without a doubt, dude. Hey, I'll just tell you
Max
right now,
points.
max
Max
point.
points. Max points.
I don't have to wait for the audience, man. It's max point. You say passion. Here's what I want to do. I'm not even sure I was going to dive off into this, but I'm going to ask you this question because you are a passionate person. And in less than 3 months, you love this job. You have fun at this job. You're a passionate person, and you're getting
Mhm.
ready to say, I'm done with this job after close to 40 years.
36 years with my organization.
And the Explorer time. And yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I started when I was 15, I'm going to be going out when I'm about ready to turn 55. So, um, yeah, it's going to be emotional. I don't want to say my department has driven me to retirement, but I will say my department has edged me to retirement. I don't necessarily want to leave, and as you know, it's just been a struggle for me. This
right.
year has been really rough. I don't want to leave the profession. I love my time. I mean, my situation is we live in Vegas and I work in Washington, and my wife was retiring, and we knew that we wanted to be near the grandkids and the
Hmm.
kids, and so we bought our house and built a house, and everything is great down there. And we've been living in two different states, but um, if I could, I would continue doing the job. My whole plan was to work to 58. And
What about, I don't want to walk on you, but
no, no, go for it.
what about being a fire chief that's super passionate and going to conferences and stuff?
Hmm.
Like,
Yeah, I don't see fire chief in my, I don't see it in my future. But
right on. Okay.
here, I mean, here's the reason why. Um, I just don't know that I'm a good fit for it, and I think that everybody has a good fit for what they do. I think I was a good fit for being on the ladder truck. I did fine on an engine, but I think I was a better fit for ladder truck. I think I'm a great fit for battalion, and it's not just because I don't work as hard, but the things that motivate me, the things I enjoy doing is developing future officers and developing my battalion. And so I love spending a lot. I mean, that's why I do Young Officers on Fire. That's why I do all this stuff.
Right.
And so,
Right.
so being a BC is a good fit. I would have loved to have been an ops chief, or, been chief of training and been able to do that. But fire chief is just doesn't seem like it's in my future. And here's what I'll say about all of my mentors, or those that I would consider my friends who are fire chiefs. I asked them, when did you know you wanted to be fire chief? And they're like, never. I never wanted to be fire chief. It just happened. And so they never have a desire. So it gets me to be kind of like the individuals that I meet early on in their careers, and they're company officers, and they're telling me they want to be fire chief. I've got questions,
Right on. No.
so
So
I
you're
just don't.
saying there's a chance. That's what I heard there.
Well, I live in Vegas, and the departments in Vegas is like Vegas Fire is like 19 stations, or I'm sorry, Vegas Fire is 22 stations. North Vegas is 9 stations. I think Henderson. I mean, Clark Lampion's probably going to log in here and tell me I'm all lost. But Henderson is probably 12 stations, and Clark County, which is the Strip, is like 40 stations. So those are all big departments
Right.
for a guy like me coming from battalion. I just don't see the mayor saying, "Hey, we got this guy Rob Fischer. He's going to be a great fire chief for our department."
We'll make him watch the scrap. You'll be fine.
I appreciate your confidence in me, though.
I love it. Okay. Max points for number one. Number two. I love this question. I'm waiting to see. It's Jobtown, and there is a Spotify playlist. If you go to the Firehouse Vigilance discussion, it's pinned there. You can get a link to it. It is being updated as far as I know. With all that being said, it's Jobtown. It's time. You're en route and responding. You got to think of the scene from Backdraft. He's slapping that tape into the tape deck while responding. What song are you playing en route?
Because the history behind this is that it started with we were having the meetup, and
The Vigilante meetup in Pensacola.
Yep, and we were talking about what's your walk up song, because we were talking about like baseball,
Yeah.
and all I said was, it's like in Backdraft when they dropped the tape in,
Yes.
and that was
That's what
just like
started this whole thing.
boom. So I could age myself and go to something in the 70s, which I would love to do. But the more I started thinking about it, I mean, there's so many songs that I'd want to drop in that tape deck, but it's going to be Motley Crue, Livewire.
Livewire.
Yeah.
I love it, man. I
I
love
mean,
it.
the other one that was a close second was Scorpions, Wild. So that kind of puts you where I'm at. My granddaughter likes Taylor Swift, and I'm like, honey, do you want to listen to any Motley Crue or
Or
Scorpions?
maybe some Scorpions. And it's not
Poison.
even like you're picking like their big hits either. Those are I won't say B-sides, but they're not like
Yeah.
you had to know the albums to know these songs
Well, I mean, it's the one Livewire is what put Motley Crue on the
on
map
the map.
back in the '80s hair band days, and Scorpions. I mean, Scorpions had multiple great albums before before Boys Running Wild came out on. God, I'm trying to think of the exact. It's the one that has Rock You Like a Hurricane.
Hurricane, yeah, which is their mega, yeah.
Yeah, but anyways, yeah, but those I would go with Motley Crue. I mean, it's just
Livewire.
live gets you going. And here's the other thing is, like, you got to get a song that gets right to speed, because you're looking at a 3 to 4 minute response time. You don't have, I mean, you can't play a little Pink Floyd or anything. You
Right.
can't be a makeup song.
Can't be a
It
slow
can't
simmer.
exactly. You can't wait 2 minutes to get up to speed. It's like, soon as the bay door opens, dun
Yeah.
it's got to go right into it. So
No, like Stranglehold is a great one, but it's
Oh,
just
yeah.
it's just such a long build up. You can't. Yeah, I get you. I
Yeah.
get you. All right. I love it. Okay, what is your favorite fire service? And you got max points, by the way. 2 for 2. Favorite fire service tradition, number 3.
Well, I've got 2 of them, but do I have to just give you one, or can I give you both?
I mean, there's always the danger you don't get max points if you give 2 answers. So
Okay,
that's
then I'm gonna
always
give you.
it better be 2 really damn good answers.
Well, I know these are 2 really good, damn good answers or whatever. But so I'm gonna give you my answer, and then is gonna be what do they call that? Um,
The
uh,
runner
not a runner up,
honorable mention.
honorable mention.
I was
Okay,
getting
so
there.
and then I've thought about this, and there's a lot of traditions in the fire service, but the one that I think that needs to stick out and has been screwed up a little bit over my career is fire trucks are red. They're red, not yellow, not lime green, not any other weird color you can come up with. Fire engines are red. That is a tradition that we have screwed up. Now, if I were to pick another color because the city or the county I'm working for says you're not going to have a red fire engine, it would be white. But red fire engine. Now, here's how I'll back it up. Is that the neighboring department to mine, this goes back to the 90s, they had yellow fire trucks. And there was a complaint filed to the department, and they said, The red fire truck drove by me, blah, 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 whatever it was. Well, that department didn't have red fire trucks. And it wasn't a red fire going by, it was the one. But the public thinks and sees red fire trucks, no matter what color it is. So my tradition is red fire trucks.
Max points for red fire trucks, period. And that's backed up by science, by the way.
It is back to, but here's my honorable mention.
Okay.
The kitchen table, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, there is the one thing that I know that I'm gonna miss, and I feel sorry for Clark County Fire in Vegas because I am gonna become that
The
old guy
guy.
that's gonna. You mind if I come in and grab a cup of coffee? And you know what? I have to. I'm a taxpayer. I'm coming in. I'm having coffee, and I'm sitting at the kitchen table. So there's so much that gets done at the kitchen table, and fire chiefs above battalions visit your station, sit at the kitchen table, and talk.
Mm.
That's how you know your people. That's how you know what's going on. You want to be able to have some, you know, some collateral to do things down the road. You can't just come in and ask your firefighters to do things if you haven't spent time with them. The best time next to the fire ground, next to training, is at the kitchen table. And so the kitchen table is my honorable mention.
And I said it better be damn good answers, but 100% max points, because I'll tell you this, I'm almost to the point of changing that question, and it basically being, other than the kitchen table, what is your favorite fire service tradition? Because it literally is the greatest there. And anybody correct me on this, I don't know of another profession that has the firehouse, the kitchen table that we have, that we get to share, that shift change, that after dinner, that camaraderie, that bonding time. I don't know where that exists in any other profession.
I don't think it does. Well, I
Yeah,
mean, military maybe,
maybe, and
but out
that's the only one in combat military specifically, almost. You know what I'm
combat
saying?
military, because
Yeah,
if you're at the base, you're eating at the,
right.
you're eating at the cafeteria, but
That's
when
as
you
close
you
as
know
I think it can get.
yeah, when you look at the history of the fire service, I mean, firefighters before there were shifts, I mean, they basically lived, excuse me, they lived at the fire station.
Yeah,
They had families that would visit the fire station
right.
and would, dine with them and everything. But back in the days, that was your job. You lived at the fire station and you would go home on occasion. And then there came A and B shift, and then there came C shift.
Right.
And now, but uh, that's neither here nor there. But when the fire service is making everything a family, the kitchen table, that's where society is struggling now, is that, we don't sit down at the kitchen table as often as we used to. And there creates problems in our family unit. And when the fire service is not sitting down at the table on a regular basis and hashing stuff out, then we're gonna have problems. So
Mm. No,
but
it's beautiful, man.
I love the kitchen table, man.
Brother, you can't go wrong.
Mm.
This one we had to put on the clock because ultimately this is the one where you could go on and on and on with honorable mentions, right? And it was actually adding, like, doubling the length. I mean, we're pushing 2 hours, Rob. I don't know if you realize. I apologize to, but so long story short, 1 minute to answer. You get to put 4 people on your Mount Rushmore of the fire service. Sam is going to start the clock and go.
Tom Brennan, Andy Fredericks, Lane Kemper from LAFD, Bob Morris. 8 seconds.
8 seconds.
No,
Is that
I mean,
officially the fastest?
yeah. Here's the thing. I mean, like, it's not like I don't listen to the scraps, so I know that this question is coming. But
Right.
you can come at it from so many different angles, and not that this is my time trying to explain, but you can come at it from so many different angles. I thought, as I was doing, I was like, oh man, is it the individuals in my life that helped shape me, which would be, I mean, I'm not going to go into honorable mentions, but there's some people that really did a good job shaping me, as I think did the best they could.
Right.
But I looked at it from, Mount Rushmore is just not individuals that are up there that shaped a single small group of people. The
Oh, yeah.
individuals on Mount Rushmore shaped America.
Mm.
And so I look at it as, if we're talking about, shaping the American Fire Service, there is definitely more than just the four there. But
Oh yeah.
so I took a little bit of personal side of it, of like what developed me as a firefighter and as a company officer, and I took the side of it as who had the greatest impact, I think, in the American Fire Service. And I mean, number one is Tom Brennan. I don't think anybody has had as much of an impact, from being editor in chief and going on. They said he went on 25,000 working structure fires in his career.
Good Lord.
You know,
That's
I've gone on
insanity.
25,000 EMS calls in my career, but
Right.
but
Wow.
Bob Morris has written all the stuff on forcible entry, and it is the Bible for everybody in America when it comes to forcible entry. Andy Fredericks, he's got conferences named after him. I mean, he wrote a lot for fire engineering. He was a student of the fire service. And then I throw in Lane Kemper because being from the West Coast, Lane was from LAFD. He died of cancer. I believe it was cancer, but he died after retirement. And but he shaped a lot of what the LAFD has for truck operations, and then that was carried on by Mittendorf and so on and so forth. So those are my four on firefighter Mount Rushmore.
I love it, man. I absolutely love it. Easy max points, and that was a killer 8 seconds. And what I really love is your explanation of, because we've discussed this. It's like not a fair question. It's so brutal on somebody, because how do you pick between the people that shaped the fire service and the people that shaped your career, your personal life, you
Yeah.
know, and that is tough. So I loved your explanation there. I loved it. Okay, final question. It is the question that's never changed. It's the question that probably will never change. It's heavy fire, searchable space. Would you rather be assigned to the nozzle or first in on VES?
I
I enjoy the people coming back to hear the question again.
yeah,
So
I mean, it's not going to change for me.
okay,
But I did hear Sergi talk about how the truck company comes up and they see the nozzle there. That that they're just like, oh, I just want to pick it up. I just want to use it. And I like, so I'm going to give it from perspective of battalion chief. I'm arriving first, and if I arrive first at a fire, hopefully I'm equipped, I'm properly dressed. But if I arrive first and a mom or dad are saying my kid's in that room, I'm diving in that window. It's VES all day long, buddy.
mm,
So
mm. I love
I,
the answer. I
it's
love the BC perspective.
but even, I mean, if I was on an engine, I guess the hard part is, what do I want to do? Well, I spent most of my career, a good 80% of my career was on a ladder truck. I love doing ladder truck operations. So, and yes, I was on a Quint and I could have stretched a line, but we're about saving lives. And if that's the mission, if I can go in and do a VES and affect the rescue, then that's what I'm going to do. And I enjoy it. But I will say, not that I'm wavering at all. It is fun to get on the nozzle. There's a picture out there of me flowing. You know, I'm using the Camella grip and I'm flowing a line. We were teaching at Mile High Conference this last October, and I'm like, "Ooh, this feels good. I kind of like this. This is good." But it's VES all day. There you go.
I love it, man.
Final answer.
150 GPM 100% of the time. But
Well, it's
no,
160 because we were using
160
a
because it was smoothbore 7/8.
7/8 smoothbore. But
I love it. There it is. That officially makes it 5 for 5 max points, as expected. And I want to tell you, like so many people said, he had max points before he ever opened his mouth. That was a sentiment that was running throughout the chat. But 100%, that officially makes it 226 scraps in the books. My brother Rob Fischer, thank you for an amazing evening. If someone wants to get a hold of you, if they want to ask you questions, they want to get more information, how can they go about doing that?
RobFisher72@gmail.com. Rob Fisher 72 on Facebook, Rob Fisher 72 on Insta, which I'm not on Instagram as much. My phone number 425-870-0129. Yes, I'm giving you my cell phone number. So my cell phone is set so that I can't get spam robocalls. So if you're not a number that I recognize, it sends you automatically to my voicemail. Leave me a voicemail and I'll get back to you. But I love talking fire. I love talking shops. So, And then Young Officers on Fire, that's the big thing. And I'm at almost all of the CFT conferences, and I don't travel as often as I should or as I used to with Brothers in Battle. But I'll just say Brothers in Battle's got some great
Hmm.
instructors, and I'm the old guy, and I haven't worked on a ladder truck in 8 or 9 years. So I just love going and just hanging out and watching those guys work and teach and passing on. But where Brothers in Battles at, I try to get to. I'll be at Firemanship in July. I'll be at ODP in 2 weeks. I'll be at BC Boot Camp in 1 month. March Mayhem in Idaho in March, just after I retire. Good God. Young Officers on Fire, leadership conference in May. Come. We'll have some great people there. Somebody like Gorley Moore, Frank Lieb. So
Rob Fischer.
yeah, I am teaching there now. So,
That's
but
awesome, man.
well, hey Corley, let me just tell you,
Go.
I not to do a bro session here and stroke you, but you are one of my favorites as well, and you and I have talked about this. I don't know how you do it. A lot of people think I'm a busy guy, which I do believe I'm busy, but I don't know how you do it. You're so dedicated to this profession and trying to make it better, and I am so glad that our two paths met, and that I get the benefit of our relationship and learning from you. And you're writing books, you got everything going on. It's awesome that you're doing it. And then to the crowd or to the audience, just thank you for being into the job and wanting to make it
Amen.
better and being here with us and listening to us BS for this 2 hours. And I appreciate your time tonight. So there you
I
have it.
love it. Hey, I'm terrible at taking compliments, so thank you. That's what I've learned to say is thank you, because it's the only thing I can do. Because when people tell me thank you for what you do, or how do you do it, it's like, holy crap, I got to talk to Rob Fischer one on one for 2 hours straight. Like, and people say thank you for doing it, and to me that blows my mind. Okay, so 100%. Thank you for the compliment. I really do. There's a lot of good podcasts out there, a ton of good podcasts out there. There really are. But there is only one scrap. And the reason I say that is not because it's mine, not because it's what I do. It's because the audience logs in every week and asks the most kick ass questions. They give the most awesome feedback. They give the max points out. They interact. Without the audience, it's just another podcast. And you guys are the ones that make it magical. So we'll just keep passing out bro love.
Absolutely. That's what makes us unique, and it just kills me that you're able to pull this off every week and still do everything that you do, and just it kills me. But in addition to being here, be a vigilante. If you haven't signed up to be a vigilante, join us. It's great being a part of it, and you get a lot of behind the scenes stuff and a lot of really cool. And you're connected with some of the great in the fire service. So
That's awesome. Hey, thank you, Rob. 100%. Thank you for that. Coming up, that's it. I don't even know what to say. 2024 is off to the races. The bar has been set, and so we'll see where it goes from here. After party. Speaking of the vigilantes, Rob's not done, because now you get to go and ask him questions. If you're a vigilante, you get to have a one-on-one conversation with him, and it's the after party. I will post the link in the private group. That's it. My brother, man, I don't know what else to say. It's been a killer night. We've already got 2 hours. Killer night. Killer night.
226 done.
It's in the books. So thank you. Thank you for the time. Vigilantes, I'll see you soon. Everybody else, I hope that the tone stays silent unless it's burning. Everybody, stay safe out there.